Part 3, page 225. Okay, the first part of the book, remember I've been telling you it's the exposition setting up everything that is necessary that you need to know. Part 2 was, we don't need to deal with that. Now we get to see Winston and get to experience life and see him with Julia, see him with O'Brien, and really get the plot moving and get the suspense going. And oh my gosh, a book. There is a brotherhood. There is Goldstein. Oh my gosh, O'Brien's talking to me. I'm in his house. Oh my gosh. I'm reading the book. And then whew, the rug is pulled out from underneath him. And he gets transported to the Ministry of Love. So we're going to find out what happens in the Ministry of Love. I'd make notes on the setting, what this is like. Okay, he's in place. Everything's white. There are no clocks. He is amongst other people. Over time, and as we go through this part, time has ceased to exist. It's kind of like in the movies. If you see somebody thrown into solitary confinement, you know, and it's dark the whole time, they don't know what time it is, what day it is. They just know based on food showing up. Okay? You lose all sense of that. As he goes through here, and you see at the end of chapter 1 how he's getting beaten, beatings will become more regular. And through the beatings and the unconsciousness and the healing and then the beatings and interrogations, you lose all sense of time. Okay? It's like if you were stranded on an island for tens of years, you would probably ultimately, unless you were really good like Tom Hanks in Castaway and keeping track of everything, you would lose focus and you wouldn't know if it's Sunday or if it's Tuesday. What does it matter to you? If you're alone on an island, really, what does it matter? Okay? And over time here, there is no clocks. They tell you what you need to know and do, and they control you, just like Big Brother likes to do. Yeah, it might have been 24 hours since he'd eaten. It might be 36. He still did not know, probably never would know, whether it had been morning or evening when they arrested him. You know, he just focused and dragged there. If you made unexpected movements, they yelled at you from the telescreen. Smith, yelled the voice from the telescreen. 6079 Smith W. Hands out of the pockets in your hands out of pockets in the cells. So they are focused. They are watching you. They don't want you doing anything. Okay, hands in pocket, getting something, whatever. They want you in a certain way. And we meet a couple other individuals here. Even on 227, this is kind of maybe more for comedic / gross out factor. This woman, overweight, vulgar woman, he sat next to her. You know, she leant forward and she vomited copiously on the floor. So she's just puking all over and just gross. And I can't keep down any of this stuff. I'm just getting sick. And, you know, just the beating and just, you know, it's just real rough. And Winston, for one split second, who does he think this woman possibly could be? His mom. We never know what happened to his mom. I don't think it's his mom, and I don't think he really thinks it is. But for a split second, oh, I wonder. You know, that's probably a really, really dark thought really quickly that he had. Middle of 228 is the first time that we see, we hear about a room 101, which he did not understand. Go ahead and underline that and circle that. That's going to be very relevant. That's something that, as we see in a little bit with, I believe it's Ampleforth, 101 is pretty significant. And we still don't know why. We being Winston and us. We don't know why. But that's something that will have greater clarity down the road. As it goes down to the bottom, he thinks about Julia. He hardly thought of Julia. He could not fix his mind on her. He loved her and would not betray her, but that was only a fact. Known as he knew the rules of arithmetic, he felt no love for her. He hardly even wondered what was happening to her. He thought oftener of O'Brien with a flickering hope. O'Brien must know that he had been arrested. The Brotherhood, he had said, never tried to save its members. But there was the razor blade. They could send a razor blade, meaning off yourself. Kill yourself. They'll never come and a prison break and take you out, because that could, jeopardize a lot more of the Brotherhood's numbers and so on. So really, if you're caught, it's pretty much, you're dead. You might have seen spies in World War II, Vietnam and so on. If, they might take a cyanide pill instead of being caught. You've seen this before? In Captain America, right after he gets transformed, I just watched this, so that's why it's relevant. He grabs that Nazi and the guy breaks off a false tooth. Those of you that have seen it. And he bites down on it and he kills himself, instead of being arrested and giving up vital information and interrogation and all of that. But so that's what the Brotherhood does to the people that get caught. Page 230, we meet a poet named Ampleforth. First time we meet him, last time we meet him. Not very relevant to the overall scope, other than this exchange. It's pretty integral. Talking to Winston. Smith, you too? What are you in for? To tell you the truth? He sat awkwardly on the bench opposite Winston. There is only one offense, is there not? And have you committed it? Committed it? Apparently I have. Think about that. Apparently I have. He didn't say yes I did or no I didn't. Because does that even matter whether he did it or not? No. Big brother says you did it, and apparently I have. Apparently I have. And that's a really telling statement, okay? In setting up the whole, the whole structure of the novel. Apparently I have. Whatever Big Brother said I did, I have no defense for. There is nothing that I could do or say to if they said it, I did it. So apparently. What a great phrasing. Apparently I have. Well, what are you here for? Well, we were producing a definitive edition of the poems of Kipling. You guys heard of Kipling? Anybody know what he wrote? Jungle Book. Very good. I allowed the word God to remain at the end of a line. I could not help it. It was impossible to change the line. The rhyme was rod. Do you realize that there are only 12 rhymes to rod in the entire language? For days I had racked my brain. There was no other rhyme. And so for the literary merit, I left in God. I didn't leave in God to prove a point and stick it to Big Brother and promote religion. It rhymed. And it was the only one that worked. I think this is one of the only real mentions of religion in the book. Right? And how does Big Brother handle any mention of religion? The other that I can think of is the presence of the church that was in the picture. Well, what happened to that church? Do you recall? Well, what happened to it first, before the museum? It was bombed out. And now it's a museum for Big Brother propaganda, right? And now we had this guy mentioning God, leaving it in. Even literary-wise, it's got to be there. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense and it doesn't rhyme. How could a poem not rhyme? In this particular instance. But that wasn't, you mentioned God. No, we don't mention God. Because why focus on that when you can focus on me, Big Brother? Okay, they don't want your attention diverted. Whether it's religion, whether it's love and lust and passion and all that. They want all of your attention focused on the party. That's the way they control you. Remember when we saw the superpowers? Okay, in the book in 2.9, they said the war was a way to keep people in check. To keep the people that are in charge and keep everybody else below them. So very important. 232, Ampleforth. With a brief movement of the hand, a guard walked in, said room 101. Ampleforth, marched clumsily out. And who walks in? Parsons. Remember Parsons? Okay, he was his next door neighbor. He had the kids that he was very proud of. Parsons is a big time proponent of Big Brother. But he got caught. Who caught him? His kids. Was he angry? No, I'm proud of them. They did a great job. They did what they were supposed to. This guy is... By today's standards, we'd probably call him a moron or an idiot or you're crazy. But by standards of here, he's a party member. He swallowed it. You might have heard of the cliche, hook, line, and sinker. Remember with the chocolate rations? After they announced that? And Winston's like, that's ridiculous. But Syme, who was very, very too intelligent, that was eventually going to vanish, Syme actually, they said, swallowed it. He bought it. Here, not O'Brien, Parsons is so into the party that they did their job. Good job. They got me for thought crime. Well, are you guilty? Of course I'm guilty, cried Parsons. You don't think the party would arrest an innocent man, do you? Think about that. I guess I'm guilty. It's the same as what we said previously on that other page. The party wouldn't arrest innocent people, would they? Well, we know the answer to this, right? As an outside observer. But for a party member to fully, wholeheartedly believe that, and you're in there for something like that, that's just astounding. He said, in my sleep, they got me talking in my sleep, subconsciously. And that's how they caught me, and so on. It's my little daughter. Page 236. The main action. Room 101 is mentioned. This has to be at least the third time. First time he didn't understand it. Second time Ampleforth goes away. Somebody comes in and he mentions the skull-faced man. The door opened with a small gesture. The officer indicated the skull-faced man. Room 101. There was a gasp and a flurry at Winston's side. The man had actually flung himself on his knees on the floor with his hands clasped together. Comrade, officer, you don't have to take me to that place. Haven't I told you everything already? What else is it you want to know? There's nothing I wouldn't confess. Nothing. Just tell me what it is and I'll confess it straight off. Write it down and I'll sign it. Anything. Not room 101. Room 101, said the officer. The man's face, already very pale, turned a color Winston would not have believed possible. It was definitely, unmistakably a shade of green. Do anything to me. You've been starving me for weeks. Finish it off and let me die. Shoot me. Hang me. Sentence me to 25 years. Is there somebody else you want me to give away? Just say who it is and I'll tell you anything you want. I don't care who it is or what you do to them. Here's where it's like, wow. I've got a wife and 3 children. The biggest of them is 6 years old, kindergarten. You can take the whole lot of them and cut their throats in front of my eyes, and I'll stand by and watch it, but not room 101. Room 101. Okay, so we don't know what's in room 101, but is it a good thing or bad? Bad. Winston knows nothing about room 101 except what he hears this guy. This guy says, take my 3 kids, all toddlers, and you can slit their throats, and my wife, in front of me. Please don't make me go to a room. In movies and stuff, if people are having a standoff, usually it's, take me, let them go, right? Let them go, but protect me, save me, and so on. Here it's completely the opposite. Look at this. This man wants his family killed. In movies and TV, when people are at gunpoint, it's a standoff. You usually say, no, let my family go. Take me. Do whatever you want to me, but let them go. Right? You've seen this before. But here it's, save me, kill them. Here, let me get out of the way so you can slit their throats, and I'll just stand by and watch. Okay, dead? Good? Good, no room 1. Okay, I can go? Great. Okay? That doesn't seem right. So something is rough in room 101. And during this time, Winston has even struggled with even thinking about Julia. He doesn't think about her anymore. He doesn't. He struggles. Where's it at? It's back on 228. He hardly thought of Julia. He could not fix his mind on her. He loved her and would not betray her. But that was only a fact, known as he knew the rules of arithmetic. He felt no love for her. And he hardly even wondered what was happening to her. He thought oftener of O'Brien with a flickering hope. O'Brien must know that he had been arrested. The Brotherhood, he had said, never tried to save its members, but there was the razor blade. They would send the razor blade if they could. Meaning, if you're caught, it's like in the movies when a spy is caught, you know this is a dangerous mission. If you're caught, what's the line? We will disavow all knowledge of your existence. They say something like that, right? It's on the Mission Impossibles, things like that. Same type of thing. But they're not going to send somebody to break you out. They might send a razor blade for you to do what with? Shave, right? No, slit your wrist. Slit your throat if you can do that. I guess you can nick the artery over there. Okay? So very interesting to see where Winston's mindset is. He won't betray her, but he isn't thinking about her, which is strange. Given time, he will think about her, but initially, he's more concerned about O'Brien, about what's going to happen in the foreseeable future. So that takes us to 238, the last 2 pages. The boots were approaching. The door opened. O'Brien came in. Winston started to his feet. The shock of the sight had driven all caution out of him. For the first time in many years, he forgot the presence of the telescreen. "They've got you too!" he cried. "They got me a long time ago," said O'Brien, with a mild, almost regretful irony. He stepped aside. From behind him there emerged a broad-chested guard with a long black truncheon in his hand. "You knew this, Winston. Don't deceive yourself. You did know it. You have always known it." Yes, he saw now. He had always known it. So O'Brien, good guy, bad guy. Winston thinks, "Oh man, they got you too?" Winston, "They got me a long time ago." Gets out of the way so the big strong guy can come in and start beating on Winston. And the torture and the agony is going to start. Okay? The next 3-4 scenes up until the end deals with O'Brien and Winston. As an actor and as somebody who would go and see a play, these would be the most interesting scenes. We are going to see Winston holding out hope, holding out those principles. We're going to see O'Brien trying to break him and torture him and get him down. Winston holding on to that betrayal, holding on. O'Brien going after him, talking about the policy. Winston getting all of these questions, all these questions about O'Brien and about brotherhood and the Bible and all these things, and O'Brien answering or not answering, just back and forth. If you start reading and you're into the book, just finish it. You will enjoy the ending that much more if you can keep that continuity going. Part 3, Chapter 2. Okay, Winston was beaten at the very end of Chapter 1. We see, O'Brien as a member of the inner party, which we already knew he was a member, but he is not a traitor to the party. He is fully behind the party, which is not really good news for our protagonist, Winston. 240 and 241. I'm just going to kind of skip around on these pages, so stay with me. The confessions, the beatings were long. There was some time off, then there'd be more beatings. And Winston would go with a different game plan for each beating. The confession was merely a formality, meaning you confess, but it wouldn't stop. Okay, people, when they're tortured, they tend to, whether they break and tell the truth or lie, they'll say whatever to make the pain stop, to make the torture stop. Remember, the goal of that is to survive and live. Okay, and that's where Winston said that the only way we can win is when we don't have that as our goal, but our goal is to remain human. Okay, so that's ultimately what he needs to do, and in order to hold on to his love for Julia and not to betray her and so on. Down on 240, he talks that there were times when he'd roll around the floor and trying to dodge all the kicks. There are other times when they would beat him and they could not force himself, and he tried to black out, but he couldn't. There are other times when he started out with the resolve of confessing. I'm going to confess, but not yet. I can take more. So he had a different mindset going into each one. Okay, even though the end was always going to be the same, just beaten to a pulp. Okay, they're breaking him down and breaking him down physically and it looks like mentally as well. Eventually the beatings grew less frequent. If you look on 241, the real weapon ultimately was the physical stuff kind of stopped for the most part. I mean, I would still be threatened with that, but it was the questioning. Long interrogations of questioning. Imagine you've seen in the movies where somebody is not given water, and they sit in a dark room with a really hot light right under, kind of like those heat lamps on your fries that don't seem to work that great sometimes, or at least my fries tend to be cold. Those of you that work at McDonald's, talking to you. And it seems like, you know how they scrape the last of the fries? The last that's been sitting there? Those are the ones I always get. So the mom with the whiny kids behind me, they get the fresh batch that they just drop in, and you just see them shoot all that salt. Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Yeah, don't stand in line with me. If you stand in line with me, stand behind me and you'll get the best fries. 242, during the questioning, Winston, his mind is still working. His sole concern was to find out what they wanted him to confess and then quickly confess it. He confessed to assassinations of eminent party members, the distribution of seditious pamphlets, embezzlement of public funds, sale of military secrets, sabotage of every kind. He said that he was a religious believer. He was an admirer of capitalism. He was a sexual pervert. He confessed he murdered his wife, which he's pretty sure that he knew that the questioners knew that his wife was still alive. But he still was trying to figure out what is this game that they want and then head them off at the pass and confess to it. And so he's trying to stay with it mentally as much as he can. The emergence of O'Brien, 243 and 44 and 45, and really from here on out, he's the one who's in charge of these interrogations ultimately, okay, and the tortures. Winston's feelings about O'Brien go up and down, up and down. At one point, we're talking today, at one point, he loves O'Brien. Huh? Seriously? But you got to think about the mindset that Winston's in, and we'll get there in a little bit. The broken, the way that he's broken down. Bottom of 244. Well, top, I guess, and then bottom. But he says, "Don't worry, Winston. You are in my keeping. For 7 years I have watched over you. Now the turning point has come. I shall save you. I shall make you perfect. I told you that if we met again, it would be here." "Yes," said Winston. Without any warning, except a slight movement of O'Brien's hand, a wave of pain flooded him. There's a bunch of dials, little things. I mean, you've seen this in movies as well. Just you start twisting it, and you see the needle go up. And as it goes up, it's more electricity or more pain in this instant, and going up to 100 and so on. And so just a little twist of the hand, and it'll zap him, give him a lot of pain. A lot of pain. And that happened, as we see throughout here, quite a bit. O'Brien on 245, before he really gets going, he goes, you can see that the numbers on this dial run up to 100. What you just experienced was 40, and that blew Winston's mind. Think about that. If I tortured you guys all, and you're screaming and crying, and then I said, this dial goes to 100. That was at 40%. Keep that in mind as I ask you questions, because we can go a lot longer, and a lot harder, and a lot more painful. So that is in your mind now. Okay, and that gives you one more thing to be worried about and scared of. I'm taking trouble with you, Winston, because you are worth trouble. You know perfectly well what is the matter with you. You have known it for years, though you have fought against the knowledge. Here it is. You are mentally deranged. You suffer from a defective memory. You are unable to remember real events, and you persuade yourself that you remember other events which never happened. Fortunately, good for you. It's curable. I'm going to cure you. So he's here because he's insane. It's not because he slept with Julia and all these other little things, okay? It is, you have a deranged mind, Winston, and we need to fix you. We need to correct you. And so that's the ultimate goal that we see O'Brien undertake here. So to test him, at this moment, 246, at this moment, which power is Oceania at war with? Well, when I was arrested, Oceania was at war with Eurasia. Excuse me, I misread. Oceania was at war with East Asia. With East Asia. Good. And Oceania has always been at war with East Asia, has it not? Winston drew in a breath, opened his mouth to speak, and then did not. Because what's Winston going to say? Not technically, because I remember, a week ago it was the other, and then 4 years ago it was what it is right now. But you see, he paused for a moment. You can almost imagine if O'Brien's straight out from me, talking to me, and I'm Winston, like, you look over at the dial, don't you? You're like, I know what's going to happen if I tell him what I'm thinking. So I'm going to try to say what he wants me to say. But that doesn't work with O'Brien. That's not a way to cure him. Okay? And it's funny because O'Brien actually notices the truth. Please, Winston, your truth. Tell me what you think you remember. I remember that only a week ago before I was arrested, we were at war with East Asia. He stopped him with a movement of the hand. Another example. Some years ago, you had a very serious delusion. Indeed, you believed that 3 men, 3 one-time party members, do you remember this? Okay. You believed that you had seen unmistakable documentary evidence proving that their confessions were false. There was a certain photograph about which you had a hallucination. You believed that you had actually held it in your hand. It was a photograph, something like this. And he has a photograph in his hand. And Winston sees it for just a split second. And he pulls it away, but he recognized that picture. It exists. I knew it exists. I knew it exists. 247. It exists. No. He stepped across the room, lifted up the grating on the memory hole, put it in. Ashes. Not even identifiable ashes, dust. It does not exist. It never existed. But it did. It does exist. It's in my memory. I remember it. You remember it. I do not remember it. Winston's quiet. Double think. O'Brien is so good at it that and Winston says he doesn't know for sure if O'Brien really did forget it, that he just did it, because it doesn't exist anymore. It's completely gone. There's no proof that it ever existed. Winston, you're a fool. It never existed. But Winston has just seen it again. But he's just reiterating that whole thing about double think and the significance and importance of it. O'Brien was looking down at him speculatively. More than ever, he had the air of a teacher taking pains with a wayward but promising child. So Winston's strapped down. He's been tortured. All these things. And you can imagine O'Brien just looking down at him, addressing him, trying to make the troubled student learn and understand what the teacher's trying to get him to understand. You are insane, student. I'm here to help you and correct it. Okay? I'm here to cure you. 248, 249. This is where it starts to get really interesting, and we see Winston start to falter and flounder a little bit. Because they compare the memories to records, bottom of 248. In memory, oh, that's where they went. Okay, well, very well then. Well, we, the party, control all records, and we control all memories. Then we control the past, do we not? But how can you stop people remembering things? How can you control memory? You have not controlled mine. O'Brien's manner grew stern again. He laid his hand on the dial. Oh, on the contrary, you have not controlled it. That is what has brought you here. You are here because you have failed in humility and self-discipline. Skip down a bit. You believe that reality is something objective, external, existing in its own right, blah, blah. But I tell you, Winston, that reality is not external. Reality exists in the human mind and nowhere else. Whatever the party holds to be truth is truth. It is impossible to see reality except by looking through the eyes of the party. That is the fact that you have got to relearn, Winston. It's not learn. Relearn, Winston. It needs an act of self-destruction, an effort of the will. You must humble yourself before you can become sane. Have you heard this phrase before in a different way? You must be broken down in order to be rebuilt. Okay? I mean, that's when you go into the military with the boot camps and they're just drilling you, and they're trying to make you not think for yourself except to do what we tell you to do. You know, in certain situations and such. They're trying to break you down and reteach you. Relearn you. I know it sounds weird to say. And that's what he needs to do with Winston. Do you remember writing in your diary, and we talked about this, that freedom is the freedom to say 2 plus 2 makes 4? Yes. O'Brien held up his left hand. It's back towards Winston, with the thumb hidden and the 4 fingers extended. How many fingers am I holding up, Winston? 4? And if the party says that it is not 4 but 5, then how many? 4. The word ended in a gasp of pain. So you can imagine O'Brien just sitting there like this, one hand on the dial, like this. 4, zzz, and he's getting drilled. He's getting zapped. Have you heard of this, electric shock therapy, before? Okay. If you've seen the movie A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, it was the best, I think it won Best Picture in 2001, 2002. He deals with, he has multiple schizophrenia. He sees different things, different people. He sees things that aren't there. And he was committed to himself that, he got electric shock therapy, and he forced himself through will to suppress all of those. And he was a Nobel Prize winner, and it's a good movie, a good story. But they had electric shock therapy in that as well. 250, how many fingers, Winston? 4. The needle went up to 60. How many fingers, Winston? 4, 4. What else can I say? 4. Okay? Because if he says 5, he doesn't really mean it. We see that down here. How many fingers, Winston? 4. Stop it, stop it. How can you go on? 4, 4. How many fingers, Winston? 5. 5. 5. No, Winston. That is no use. You're lying to me. You still think there are 4. How many fingers, please? 4. 5. 4. Anything you like, only stop it. Stop the pain. Calm down. He's brought back down from all the pain. Things calm down. 251. Let's try this again. How many fingers? 4. I suppose there are 4. I would see 5 if I could. I'm trying to see 5. Which do you wish? To persuade me that you see 5? Or really to see them? Really to see them. Again, perhaps the needle was 80 or 90, so it's getting harder and harder and harder. 252. How many fingers am I holding up, Winston? I don't know. I don't know. You will kill me if you do that again. 4, 5, 6, in all honesty, I don't know. Look at O'Brien's response. Better. Up until then, he was defiant, saying 4. He was saying 5 just to stop the pain. So he was giving it a variable, 4 or 5, 4 or 5. But here he goes, I don't know what it is. I don't know. What is it? It's going to be what... I don't know what that is anymore. And so in a way, he's breaking him down. And this is going to come back again. That's why I paid such attention to it when he wrote it in his diary way back in part 1. Okay? So it's very... this is one of the first breaking moments that we see Winston go through. And then it goes because the pain stops. Okay? And right in the middle of that, he goes, he had never loved him so deeply as this moment, and not merely because he had stopped the pain. The old feeling that at bottom it did not matter whether O'Brien was a friend or an enemy had come back. O'Brien was a person who could be talked to. I don't know. If you're being tortured, you're going to have that same kind of feeling? I guess they keep talking about needles and injections. He could be very much being drugged and having these euphoric thoughts and feelings and, pain relief and all of these different mindsets. So it could be very difficult. Bottom, and why do you imagine that we bring people to this place? To make them confess. No, that's not the reason. Try again. To punish them. No! To cure you. To make you sane. We do not merely destroy our enemies, we change them. Do you understand? And here's where he talks about in the next couple pages about what they are going to do to you. They talk about the history that in the past, we've learned, and this in the next chapter I think he mentions as well. They've learned from the past. You guys have heard of the Spanish Inquisition, all these other great purges that have gone on throughout history. Okay? If you don't believe in our faith, we will burn you at the stake. Okay, well, fine, they died. But they died still being a heretic. They died still believing their beliefs. And so they died becoming a martyr for the rest of their people. So in essence, they've won. They didn't betray their cause or their belief. Okay? Do you understand this philosophy so far? That's what we're not doing as a party member. We find the people who believe that, and we bring you here, and we break you, and ultimately the term cure. We cure you. We build you back up. We empty you out and fill you back up, and then we release you. Imagine if they were to capture Goldstein and kill him. He would be even bigger of a martyr. But what if they got Goldstein, broke him down, and filled him up and made him the best party member possible, and then released him back amongst his people? Do you see how much more powerful of a message that is for the party? You've taken their number one person and turned him into a number one party member and sent him back out. And he says throughout here, you'll be plucked from the stream of history. We'll kill you, you'll die eventually, but not until you've served your purpose, and that is go back out and preach the word of Big Brother. We will not make martyrs. That's why we must break you before we ultimately kill you. You cannot hold on to any of these thoughts, or else Big Brother doesn't win, and that's unacceptable. Okay, so that's the mindset of O'Brien that you must remember. They do not want to make martyrs. Page 256, Winston holds on to hope, and O'Brien goes, do not imagine that you will save yourself, Winston. However completely you surrender to us, no one who has once gone astray is ever spared. And even if we choose to let you live out the natural term of your life, still, you would never escape from us. What happens to you here is forever. Understand that in advance. We shall crush you down to the point from which there is no coming back. The bottom of that, never again will you be capable of love or friendship or joy of living or laughter or curiosity or courage or integrity. You will be hollow. Man, who wants to live if that happens to you? But if that's your goal, is to stay alive, that might be something that you are acceptable to or accepting of. 259. The main torture of this scene has ended. He's calming down a little bit. O'Brien says at the top of 259, I enjoy talking to you. Your mind appeals to me. It resembles my own mind, except that you happen to be insane. Before we bring this session to an end, you can ask me a few questions if you choose. So here's a little Q&A so Winston can finally get some closure with regards to certain things. Mainly, Julia. What's happened to Julia? Where is she? What have you done with Julia? She betrayed you, Winston, immediately, unreservedly, blah, blah. All her rebelliousness, her deceit, her folly, her dirty-mindedness, everything has been burned out of her. It was a perfect conversion, a textbook case. Next question. Does Big Brother exist? Think that's a good question? Does Big Brother exist? Does he exist in the same way that I, Winston, exist? Oh, Winston. Look at this response. Oh, Winston. You don't exist. Winston's trying to find out if Big Brother exists, like me. Winston, you don't even exist. Of course he exists. You are the one who doesn't exist. You're so low, you cease to exist. We plucked you out. You're nobody. So once again, just needling him. Will Big Brother ever die? Of course not. How could he die? Next question. Does the Brotherhood exist? That's a great question that, don't you want to know? He was portraying that he was a member of the Brotherhood, but now you're like, does the Brotherhood exist? That, Winston, you will never know. You will never know. If we choose to set you free when we have finished with you, and if you live to be 90 years old still, you will never learn whether the answer to that question is yes or no. How many of you think that the Brotherhood does not exist? You just think that it was totally created by the party. The rest of you think it exists. Well, my goodness, there was a book, wasn't there? Well, who do you think wrote the book? Who says that he wrote the book? O'Brien. Does that mean that there isn't a rebellion out there to some degree? There very well could be. But this, you see how easy it is for the party to control people and blame all the mistakes on Goldstein or the enemies that they're at war with? It's a lot harder to keep everybody happy and following orders if there isn't somebody to direct all of that hatred towards. And his last question, the one that I think we all are curious about, what is in room 101? The expression on O'Brien's face did not change. He answered dryly, you know what is in room 101, Winston. Everyone knows what is in room 101. I don't know what's in room 101. I wouldn't ask you if I don't know. All he knows about room 101, the main vision that keeps popping in his head anytime he hears room 101, is that skull-faced man from the end of 3.1 that says, kill my wife, slit my kids' throats in front of me, just don't make me go. And so Winston is fearful of what is room 101 because of what he's seen or witnessed through other people. But he doesn't know. But O'Brien's like, trust me, you know. You know what's in room 101. 3.3. Middle of the page. You have read the book, Goldstein's book, or parts of it at least. Did it tell you anything that you did not already know? You have read it? I wrote it. That is to say, I collaborated in writing. No book is produced individually, as you know. Is it true what it says? Well, yeah, you already know what's in there. But think about this. The party can control what other potential brotherhood candidates, what they believe and witness. It's just like, even though Winston thought that he was free and living his wonderful life in the apartment, he was really being controlled by the party, wasn't he? They were allowing him to do that. They were monitoring him. They knew exactly what he was up to the whole time, and they kept an eye on him. And so the party was still in control. And here the party is able to control even, the dissidents of the party who want to reach out to the brotherhood and look at this, I keep calling it the Bible, but the book, the brotherhood book. Okay? And through whatever word choice they want, they can help create some sort of sense of illusion and control what the dissidents think. And it's very, very strong. Very bottom of 262 and up to 263, we're back to being interrogated and so on. He says that you are ruling over us for our own good, he said feebly. You believe that human beings are not fit to govern themselves, and therefore he started and almost cried out. A pang of pain had shot through his body. That was stupid, Winston. Stupid. You should know better than to say a thing like that. Doesn't it sound like it's one of those answers that somebody in power would ultimately want? We're just weak, feeble humans. We need you to control us. We need you to look out for our own well-being so that we don't hurt ourselves. That's a stupid answer, Winston. I'm disappointed in you. You have such a unique mind, and you give me an answer like that? That's a stupid thing to say. Now, I will tell you the answer to my question. It is this. The party seeks power entirely for its own sake. We are not interested in the good of others. We are interested solely in power, not wealth or luxury. We are different from all the oligarchies of the past in that we know what we are doing. Oligarchies are ruled by few people because they are the minority, but they're ruling. Okay, few people. We know that no one ever seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it. Power is not a means, it is an end. One does not establish a dictatorship in order to safeguard a revolution. One makes the revolution in order to establish the dictatorship. Make sure you understand those phrases and those words. Bottom of 265. I'm going to kind of speed up a little bit. Winston comes back to the fact that you cannot control everything, O'Brien. The party can't control. You can't control the stars. You can't control the physical things. The stars, you can't reach out to space and control that. O'Brien goes, no, we can control something much better. We can control your mind. We can control how you perceive those stars. If you look on the bottom of 265, what are the stars? They're bits of fire a few kilometers away. We could reach them if we wanted to, or we could blot them out. The earth is the center of the universe. The sun and the stars go around it. You see how those phrases, we know that earth isn't the center. But if we teach that, if we change the books, if we tell you that, you would have no idea that it was anything other than that. So we can control that. Are you seeing it? I know that there's tons of mind games happening throughout the whole book, but especially here where things are being explained. And things are, stuff we already knew are being amped up 4 and 5 and 6 levels. And you're getting the party's words, word for word, what the party truly believes. Not just what Winston perceives it to be. 266, the real power, towards the bottom. The power we have to fight for night and day is not power over things, but over men. How does one man assert his power over another, Winston? Winston thought. By making him suffer, he said. Exactly. By making him suffer. Obedience is not enough. Unless he is suffering, how can you be sure that he is obeying your will and not his own? Power is in inflicting pain and humiliation. Power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes, here's a key, of your own choosing. So you're building up and creating those, well, almost like robots. You're creating those individuals and so on. The last little bit that I want to really hit on is on 269. Winston still holds out hope. I don't know, I don't care. Somehow you will fail. Something will defeat you. Life will defeat you. But we control life, Winston, at all levels. Okay, well, on 270 then. Okay, well then what is it? This principle that will defeat us. I don't know. The spirit of man. Oh, and do you consider yourself a man? Yes. If you are a man, Winston, you are the last man. Your kind is extinct. We are the inheritors. Do you understand that you are alone? You are outside of history. You are non-existent. And you consider yourself morally superior to us with our lies and our cruelty? Yes, I consider myself superior. O'Brien did not speak. Two other voices were speaking. After a moment, Winston recognized one of them as his own. It was the soundtrack of the conversation he had with O'Brien on the night when he had enrolled himself in the Brotherhood. Do you remember that? Okay, that time where it was O'Brien went through it just like it was a catechism, like a routine. And he heard himself promising to lie, to steal, to forge, to murder, to discourage drug taking and throw stuff in the baby's face or in child's face. Wow, you're the last man and you were willing to do all of that? What does that say about that spirit of man that you were just talking about? Okay, get up from the bed. The bonds had loosened themselves. Winston lowered himself to the floor and stood up unsteadily. You are the last man. You are the guardian of the human spirit. You shall see yourself as you are. Take off your clothes. As he slid them to the ground, the next page, he saw that there was a three-sided mirror at the far end of the room. He approached it, then stopped short. An involuntary cry had broken out of him. Go on. Stand between the wings of the mirror. You shall see the side view as well. He had stopped because he was frightened. A bowed, gray-colored, skeleton-like thing was coming towards him. Look at the next page, 272. You are rotting away. You are falling to pieces. What are you, a bag of filth? Now turn around and look into that mirror again. Do you see that thing facing you? Here we go. That's the last man. Think about, what does the party have to fear from you, Winston? Look at you. You're the last man. You're alone. Look at you. You think you're better than us and stronger? Look at you in the mirror. And Winston's horrified by it. Look at how weak and broken and feeble he is. Oh yeah, you're going to go lead the charge in the revolution? Be my guest. You're the last man. Totally taking out all of the steam and all of the wind out of Winston, all of his thoughts and feelings about humanity. They're just whittling and whittling away. It will not last forever. You can escape from it whenever you choose. Everything depends on you. You did it. You reduced me to this state. No, Winston, you reduced yourself. You reduced yourself. Can you think of a single degradation that has not happened to you? Can you think of anything that we haven't done to you? Winston had stopped weeping, though the tears were still oozing out of his eyes. He looked up at O'Brien. I have not betrayed Julia. O'Brien looked down at him thoughtfully. No, he said. No, that is perfectly true. You have not betrayed Julia. On 274, he did this in a sense of pride, like, you still haven't broken me completely. And O'Brien, he notices that. And he almost gives him a little bit of credit that he's held out that long. You're tough. You've always intrigued me. I've said it all along. Your mind has intrigued me. Right around the middle there. And yet, in the sense in which he intended the word, he had not betrayed her. He had not stopped loving her. His feeling toward her had remained the same. O'Brien had seen what he meant without the need for explanation. Tell me, how soon will they shoot me? It might be a long time. You're a difficult case. But don't give up hope. Everything is cured sooner or later. In the end, we shall shoot you. Okay? So not a very exciting conclusion to that, the answer. But there is some sort of connection between O'Brien and Winston that we've seen, okay, mostly through Winston's mind, but we do see it here, as well as through O'Brien's acknowledgement that Winston has held out. 3.4 is much quicker. The main thing, it's time has passed. Winston has been fed. The beatings are much, much less frequent. O'Brien had said somewhere, where are my notes? That reintegration is a three-pronged step, something like that. I'm going to have to find that.
Right at the beginning of that
section. Of 2.4? I don't find it. You got a page?
No.
Okay. It's in here somewhere, but it was talking about you have to learn it, relearn it, and you have to understand it and accept it. And we're in the steps now where he's trying. He's really trying. He's scribbling on page 277, freedom is slavery, 2 and 2 make 5. He's scribbling all these, and he's really trying. He's really, really trying hard. It's trying hard. You know, and they're feeding him well. He's putting on weight. Things are going well. Okay, I'm getting cured. Things are going fine. But then out of the blue on 280, suddenly he started up with a shock of horror. The sweat broke out on his backbone. He had heard himself cry aloud, Julia, 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 my love, Julia. So instantly taking step back, step back, step back from all of that success that he was having. And remember, he's being watched all the time. Telescreens. So he's like, oh, crap, they're going to find out about that. That's not going to be good. Yeah, in another moment, he'd hear the tramp of boots outside. They could not let such an outburst go unpunished. And so he has this new fight within him. I haven't betrayed Julia. I'm still the same Winston. I can't be broken. I can't do it. I will never betray her. 282, this is a very emotional scene, very short. O'Brien comes in, get up, come here. Winston stood opposite him. O'Brien took Winston's shoulders between his strong hands and looked at him closely. You have had thoughts of deceiving me. That was stupid. Stand up straighter and look me in the face. You are improving. Intellectually, there is very little wrong with you. It is only emotionally that you have failed to make progress. Tell me, Winston, and remember, no lies. You know what I am always able to detect a lie. Tell me, what are your true feelings toward Big Brother? I hate him. You hate him. Good. Then the time has come for you to take the last step. You must love Big Brother. It is not enough to obey him, because Winston's been obeying him. You must love him. And right now you hate him. So we need to break you down and relearn you that final lesson. He released Winston with a little push towards the guards. My favorite line of the entire book, that first time reading it. Room 101. I want to know what's in 101. Anybody that actually read this far, did you honestly put the book down?
No.
If you did, shame on you. You want to know what's in room 101? Winston wants to know. I want to know. Some guy was going to off his whole family and not complain about it. He offered so that he doesn't have to go, I want to know what's in 101. Because they say, Winston, you already know. Winston's like, I don't know. The reader's like, man, I don't know. But it's going to be good. Okay? And those that have read it, you know. Okay? You know that Winston should be worried about that room. Okay? Part 3, Chapter 5. Room 101. Every time we go through this book, even though I know what's in room 101, I get a little excited. Just a little bit. Because I remember back to my first time reading it, that moment at the very end of 3-4 when he pushes them and says room 101. And like I said many times, we know, well, we don't know, but the only thing we know about it mainly is that guy wanted to off his whole family and slit his kids' throats and all that, and he'd be fine with it. So something pretty horrible is in room 101. Okay, and we are now going to find out. It's like a big reveal. Okay, and we find out it's pretty. It's the worst thing in the world for Winston, whatever that may be. Page 283. You asked me once, said O'Brien, what was in room 101? I told you that you knew the answer already. Everyone knows it. The thing that is in room 101 is the worst thing in the world. Skip down. The worst thing in the world varies from individual to individual. It may be burial, alive, or death by fire, or by drowning, or by impalement, or 50 other deaths. There are cases where it is some quite trivial thing and not even fatal. Some people, it's the maybe claustrophobic, fear of airplanes. Okay, maybe it's fear of the dark, and you're just petrified. Do you remember the story I told you of my cousin with the shark? Yeah. Are you a bad mom? Yeah. You pushed her out of the way and ran to, because she shut it down. Okay, she shut it down, and she was almost paralyzed with fear, even though she probably ran faster than she's ever ran before. But she had that overwhelming fear. So something, probably shark-infested waters would be one of her Room 101 type situation. Page 285. Winston's 101 involves rats. How on earth did O'Brien know that Winston didn't like rats? Ah, good. Sometimes it's a little slow in responding to that. The telescreen. Wait a minute, but he was in the apartment. Yeah, remember? There was a telescreen. They just didn't know about it. Can you imagine Charrington downstairs, when he's just sitting there reporting, and he sees him freaking out? What's he freaking out about? Rats. That might be important. Or he probably has to speak right. They probably don't write anything anymore, do they? Okay? But exactly. And that's one of the subtle things. And remember Winston, almost quote, he said, of all the horrors in the world, rats. And remember how he squealed, and that was one of those moments that I said that you need to write this down, make an annotation, because this is something new we find out about characters. Okay, that's new, that's relevant. We should keep an eye on that. And we see that something that was just one line. It was really probably only about that much of your book, wasn't it? Really? That whole freaking out scene? It was probably only about that much of the book, but yet we see how much that plays into his final breakdown, okay, that he has here on this page. Could you envision the contraption that they put on him? Could you envision it? It's almost something like, I kind of look at it as some sort of like a catcher's mask in baseball, affixed to you, but longer, okay? And it's caged off with sections, and the rat's down here at the end. And you lift up a partition, and it comes. Lift it up, comes. When I was a kid, they had a Nerds cereal. It didn't last very long. You know the Nerd candy? They had Nerd cereal. They had Super Mario Brothers cereal, because that was the NES years, the old 8-bit system. Those that know what I'm talking about know exactly what I'm talking about. The rest of you are like, nerd. Anyways, we had a bowl. And there was a divider, and you could fill up half of your bowl with milk and the other half with your cereal. And then you could just lift the partition, and it would flood together. It's pretty amazing. Probably cost $30,000 proof of purchases and $8 shipping. I don't remember. But I just remember the partition. And in essence, that's what this mask is. And Winston, all he can see is blackness in front of him. A bar. A wall. And there's more walls. Okay? So are we picturing this? And then O'Brien can lift it, and the thing's hungry, so it keeps coming, and then it's on the other side, and you could hear him trying to come through. Can you imagine what Winston's doing and going through? Just the notion of a rat threw him up onto the bed and made him squeal. I don't recall him seeing the rat. Wasn't it just Julia's saying that there was a rat? Pretty sure that was the case. But here he hears it. And he's transported back to his dreams. If you recall, throughout some of his dreams, he's heard something scratching on the other side of the wall. And O'Brien even comments on it here that you've always known what was on the other side of the wall, haven't you, Winston? You know that's that fear. And it's just right there. It's just on the other side. Where's some of that description that he gives him? It's just brutal. The very bottom of 285. The mask will fit over your head, leaving no exit. When I press this other lever, the door of the cage will slide up, and these starving brutes will shoot out of it like bullets. And they're getting closer and closer and closer. Down the bottom, sometimes they attack the eyes first, sometimes they burrow, because once they get to, there's no metal, there's no obstruction, it's been lifted, then they just dive into the face. Sometimes they'll go through the cheeks, go out the eyes. Pretty brutal, okay? There was a movie, I think it was the second Fast and the Furious. There was this, I think it was a Chinese biker gang, and they laid some guy down on the ground. They took a metal pail, trash can bucket, and put a rat in it, and then they put it on the guy's stomach.
Oh, I thought that was Bad Boys.
No, I think it's Fast and Furious, because it was a biker gang. They put the rat in the bucket, and then so it can't escape. The only way it can't go through metal. The rat in Winston's cage can't go through the metal. And so then, where's it going to go? The flesh. And so all of a sudden, they take a blowtorch and start heating up the metal. And so the rat's like, ooh, hot, 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 hot. Oh, warm, cool. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Start burrowing in. And that was their torture, their pain device. Okay? So this rat would do, it's not like, I'm going to get to kill a man. No, it's like survival. I'm hungry. Where can I go? Well, it's a cage all around, and now there's flesh. Start diving through. Pretty brutal and scary, especially if you're scared of rats. If you're scared, because imagine being strapped down. You're strapped down. You can't move. Your head might be strapped. The same. I'm not scared of rats, but that would be pretty freaky. Okay? And it's coming, and you hear it. If you saw the movie Signs, it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, it's an alien-type movie with Mel Gibson. Great movie. Great movie. And you don't see aliens at all, I'm not spoiling anything, until the very end. But you see their shadows and fingers and all of these different things. And I listened to the commentary, and I saw interviews with the director, and he goes, the fear of not knowing, the fear of knowing something's there but can't see it. The sound of hearing, if they're in the basement and they hear the alien walking in the house, just hearing the floor creak, knowing what's going on up there. Can you envision that? If we were here quietly and there was some burglars or somebody in the house, or the Holocaust with Anne Frank, you hear people walking, and then stopping, and you know that they're up there listening and looking around. That's scary. And so for Winston, he can't see the rat. He can hear it, for sure. He can probably smell it. He can probably feel the vibrations in the cage. And he's just going nuts. Nuts, 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 which is ultimately what O'Brien needs to break him. Page 286, follow with me, the top paragraph in the middle. There was a violent convulsion of nausea inside of him, and he almost lost consciousness. Everything had gone black. For an instant, he was insane, a screaming animal. Yet, he came out of the blackness clutching an idea. There was one and only one way to save himself. He must interpose another human being, the body of another human being between himself and the rats. Think about it. Remember, tied down, that thing's right there. The only thing, and that rat's one partition away. The only way to get away from this is to put another human being in the middle between the rat and him, so that rat will get that individual and not Winston. That's the only way. And that's the only way. And who's the only person that he can think of? Who's the only person? Julia. Now, imagine this scene. He's the panicked, freaked out character that he is. And O'Brien's going, oh, this was a common punishment in Imperial China, blah, blah, blah. But he was suddenly understood in the whole world. There was just one person to whom he could transfer the punishment. One body that he could thrust between himself and the rat. And he was shouting frantically over and over, do it to Julia, not me, Julia. I don't care what you do to her. Tear her face off, strip her to the bones, not me, Julia, not me. He was falling backwards into enormous depths away from the rats. He was still strapped to the chair, but he had fallen through the floor, so he was descending. He was just feeling, just blacking out and so on. But the last line of this is important. There was still the cold touch of a wire against his cheek, but through the darkness that enveloped him, he heard another metallic click and knew that the cage door had clicked shut and not open. So can you imagine O'Brien just sitting there? Imagine. And he hears him do that, and it's just like, getting ready to pull it up. Because he won. Winston has held out hope and the hatred for Big Brother, and he's held on to that love and feelings for Julie, and he wouldn't betray. And now, that was the last straw, the last thing. Because in 3-4, we see Winston putting on weight, and he was actually... And O'Brien said, intellectually, there's hardly anything wrong with you. It's just emotionally that there's a problem. And so here, that emotional, it's gone. It's shattered. It's done. And O'Brien knows he's done. I finally won. It's over. Okay, and that's where it's just the sound of a click. Because Winston is just kind of still passing out in darkness and so on. And And that's 3:5. Now 3:6. Chapter 6 on 2, 8, 7, and so on. Look at the setting of this scene. The setting of the scene is the Chestnut Tree Cafe. As Winston pointed out to us previously, this is a place where a lot of people who, embarrassed party members tend to go and hang out. It's a place that rumor had it Goldstein had frequented in the past, or had been seen there. And now Winston is a disgraced, embarrassed party member. And he's there. He's changed. He's broken. He is everything that O'Brien said he would be. Okay? Remember when he made him run through those lines? Would you do this? Would you do this? Would you do this? Would you betray Julia or not? Would you promise never to see her again? And they both said no. And then O'Brien said, good. We needed to know that. So O'Brien kind of knew that they had a connection. And so he was probably taking notes on those individuals about what their breaking point is going to be. But he promised Winston, and even Julia said, Julia, if he gets caught, you will never recognize him. I'm not just talking physically, emotionally. As a person, he will not be the same person. O'Brien told Winston as much. He goes, we will, and I think I paraphrased, but I said, we will wipe your hard drive and reprogram you the way we want. And Winston is that. He's back drinking his what do we call it? Gin, his victory gin. He's back, with his painful ulcers on his legs. He's back to the way he was really at the beginning, just minus the rebellious nature. Okay? So it's important to understand that transformation was huge. Another little thing I just highlighted, it's not really significant to the overall thing of the book, but it's just kind of something to notice. He's playing chess. If you notice it, he goes white, play, and mate in 2 moves. Winston looked up at the portrait of Big Brother. White always mates, he thought, with a sort of cloudy mysticism. I'm not a big, I don't know how to play chess. I understand the pieces and such, but I don't know how to play. I just know you always hear him say checkmate, mate, check, when I win and such. But anyways, he goes, always without exception, it is so arranged, in no chess problem since the beginning of the world has black ever won. Doesn't that just kind of put the cherry on the top about this Big Brother world where white always wins over black, no matter what? It's just mathematically impossible for the other to win. But we all know that, wait a minute, so you're telling me if we played checkers, red would win all the time and black would lose, or black would win and red would lose all the time? It just shows you that. And since recorded history and time, well, we know that Big Brother controls all that past and all that history, and so you probably can't find any known record where that is. But we know that's just utter ridiculousness. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. You seen those Dairy Queen commercials? Ridiculous. Clever. Somebody made a lot of money just because hey, that sounds a lot like DQ. Hey, there's a commercial. 290. Playing in the dust. He all of a sudden started writing down 2 + 2 = 5 without even thinking about it. This is significant because it shows that he fully accepts it and believes it. Because it's like a doodle. You guys have all doodled before, right? When I'm on the phone, I'm usually doodling, talking and stuff, and then when I'm done, I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is. Maybe a house with a star. I don't know. You just start doing things. Subconsciously in the dust, he writes out 2 + 2 = 5. It's not really significant to him in the Chestnut Tree Cafe, but for us, we can see how far Winston has been broken and how far Winston has been transformed. And it makes us, I would think, sad as the reader to see what has truly transpired. $290, $291, $292. One last twist, one last surprise. Aha! Oh, I didn't see that coming. He runs into Julia. Now, if you recall, back when they were the thought police SWAT team breaks in and pulls them out, and they're beating up on her and drag her out, he says that that's the last time he ever sees Julia. Is that still a true statement? Think about it. Maybe that was a dream? I don't recall it. If you find it, you can let me know. I believe the last time he saw her, and he said that that was the last time I ever saw her. Because when we got to that point, I told you specifically, I remember the words I said, that that's the last time that he ever saw Julia, that they ever, were in the same room with the same relationship that they had. Because that Winston and Julia ceased to exist at that point. Okay? Even when O'Brien informed Winston that Julia had cracked and betrayed him, you wouldn't even recognize her anymore. You wouldn't even, all of that wickedness, all of the pervertedness was all just flushed out of her. You wouldn't even recognize her. And so the individuals that fell in love, okay, and spent all that time together, those individuals are, for the most part, dead. They're different. Is this Winston the same Winston that did all those things? No. So them together was really kind of awkward here because they know that they have a history together, but they also realize that I'm not in love with you anymore. Is he sexually attracted to her at all anymore? No, she's not hot and young anymore. Well, she's still young, but she's bigger now. There's no lust. He has no feelings of lust towards her, let alone lust at all. Because he knows a good party member isn't supposed to be getting with other party members. So that thought isn't even there anymore. It's been burned out. Okay? It's just imagine the most awkward encounter possible. And that's this. On page 292, she says, I betrayed you. He says, I betrayed you. Sometimes they threaten you with something you can't stand up to, can't even think about, and then you say, don't do it to me, do it to somebody else, do it to so-and-so. Blah, blah. But at the time, when it happens, you do mean it. No matter how much I love you and how much you love so-and-so, you're just so crazy at that moment that you really mean it. And this is her telling him and explaining to him what her breaking was like. And we know that Winston's was exactly the same way. The only way he knew he could survive further was to put her, because that's the only name that came to his mind, that's the only person he really has any relationship with, put her in between him and the oncoming rat, and so on. You want it to happen to the other person. You don't give a damn what they suffer. All you care about is yourself. All you care about is yourself. He echoed. And after that, you don't feel the same toward the other person any longer. No, you don't feel the same. Because you know that we have betrayed. We have broken those feelings, that connectedness. I would die for you. I would do anything for you. But you know now that that's not true anymore. And you can't go on with that relationship. And so they part ways. Winston goes back to the Chestnut Tree Cafe. He has a couple moments. He hears that song, and this is significant. Remember, underneath the spreading chestnut tree, I sold you and you sold me. Does that line have a little bit more stake to us now? I sold you and you sold me. I betrayed you and you betrayed me. Think back to the other chestnut tree with the three guys in the picture. When that song plays, Winston noticed that they started to cry. Do you recall this? If not, just make a little note. You'll want to go back and check that out. Because that's a clue to something that now that we've experienced it with Winston and then secondhand through Julia, we know what those three guys went through and that they ultimately had to betray, maybe not necessarily each other in the group, but they had to betray somebody and somebody betrayed them and they cried and couldn't deal with it. And we see Winston going through the same emotions with those same lines and so on. The very last scene, where are we at? Well, before I get there, 296. It's interesting because we find out, just in his mind, how his mind's working, what he's doing. It talks about how he is doing more gin and more different things throughout the, back to the way he was. But right around the middle of 296, when he says he pushed, excuse me, the line before that, for a whole afternoon they had all been happy together as in an earlier childhood. All of his, he pushed the picture out of his mind. It was a false memory. He was troubled by false memories occasionally. Are these really false memories, do you think? Do you remember how before he had memories? Those weren't false back then. Those were his history, and those things and visions that he had played out to be true. Those remembrances of his mother, and so those were true. But now, any of these things, he goes, oh, no, I'm not thinking properly. Those are false memories. They're not real. So he's not giving any credibility. He's not giving any thought to those memories. He's not building and trying to analyze and figure out what the purpose of them is or are anymore. Okay? Do we see how he's completely changed? And even mentally here, he's not performing for O'Brien. He's not performing for anybody. But yet he, in his mind, he's still, oh, those are false memories. He's still playing the game, playing the rules of Big Brother, and no one's around him. So he's fully indoctrinated in their beliefs at this particular time. So it's a very telling moment. Very telling. Where are we at? Last page. The very end, the last couple pages actually, but the very last page is what we're going to look at here. He hears war correspondences going on. He knows to look up. He looks up at a picture of Big Brother sitting there staring at him, and he has a moment. I may have used the term before, an epiphany. He has this revelation. Big Brother is protecting us. Big Brother is all of these wonderful things. And the last couple lines, 2 gin-scented tears trickled down the sides of his nose, but it was all right. Everything was all right. The struggle was finished. He had won the victory over, not the party, over himself. He loved Big Brother. Okay? It's not the ending that a lot of people, mainly everybody that reads this, hopes for. We want him to be that Robin Hood, and like we've talked about, lead the proles. But we see this person tragically succumb to the party and Big Brother and O'Brien. Remember how I hate him. I hate him. Oh, that's good. It's not enough that you hate him. It's not enough that you actually do all that intellectual stuff and accept him. That way you got to do it emotionally. And so for him here, he goes, the victory over. I've cured myself. I am not insane anymore. I'm not struggling with what it was. I am a sane person. And I love Big Brother. I love Big Brother. Isn't that a sad line? Don't you, those that actually read this and experienced the journey with us, aren't those just sad? Because we know how completely opposite his true feelings were about Big Brother and about everything that the party stood for. And now he's a card-carrying member, bugle-blowing person for the party. What's going to happen to him next? Party forget about him? You think the party's going to forget about Winston since he's a good boy and has done his own thing? Did they forget about the 3 guys in the pictures after they were reformed and gave speeches and wrote articles about how horrible they were and how treasonous they were? No. He even mentioned on the previous page, what's he waiting for? Walking down the hall and then somebody pops out of a door and gets you in the back of the head. Because it's coming. O'Brien told him, even if we release you, you're not getting away from us. We're going to get you. You will die for this. But they weren't going to make a martyr out of him. They weren't going to let him die holding on a little piece of defiance against Big Brother. They're going to break him, refill him up, and send him back. Now it's a party victory. If we had killed him still holding out that love for Julia, it would have been a victory for Winston. And Winston even said that with Julia. They can't make us feel. They can't change our feelings. And so even if we die, we still win. And O'Brien and the party understands this. And so that's why they must break you. It's like in Rocky IV. I'll break you. If you've ever seen the Russian. It's a great line. Not a great movie, but it's okay.